development here as 3 UVA graduates are now suing Rolling Stone over the retracted rape story from last year. The 3 young men, all members of the fraternity that was profiled in the magazine in a debunked account of gang rape on the campus of the University of Virginia. Their lawyers say that they suffered vicious attacks over a story that turned out to be completely false. Meanwhile, the managing editor of Rolling Stone is also stepping down this week. So some big developments here, and it's part of a larger picture of what's going on campuses across the country. I'm joined by David Webb, host of the David Webb radio show on Sirius XM Patriot and a Fox News contributor. And Emily Tish Sussman is the campaign director for the Center for American Progress Action Fund. Welcome
Good morning,
to
Martha.
both of you. You know, this story, they went out searching for this story, Rolling Stone did. They went to a bunch of different, very prestigious universities in this country and said, you know, they tried to find this story. And finally, this reporter found this young woman who was willing to tell her this story. They did precious little to investigate it, and yet the 3 men who were not named in that piece, but there were enough details in the story that these 3 men claim that the fingers pointed instantly at them. They were described in such a way that their names were instantly on social media, and they were ostracized by people on campus and in the outside world. So David, do you think they have a case? And what do you think about the fact that the editor, Will Dana, at Rolling Stone has now finally, some would say, stepped down?
Well, to both those points, Martha, they do have a case. If you look at what is necessary to meet the standards of defamation under New York law, there has been harm. This was a deliberate attempt, and you said it. They went searching for a story. This journalist, or actually I wouldn't call her a journalist, a writer, went searching for a story, and Will Dana and the editorial managers at Rolling Stone have a duty. I've worked in print. They have a duty as editors to make sure that what goes out in the magazine is accurate. They should fact check, and they should make sure the story has been fully vetted. You interview both sides. You do what you're supposed to do if you claim to be a journalist. The magazine has culpability because they're the employer, and ultimately they're responsible for what's in their publication.
Yeah, Emily, there's a bigger picture here, and the administration talked a lot about what they call a rape crisis that exists, they say, on college campuses, and that 1 in 5 women are assaulted during the time period that they are going to college in the United States of America. But those numbers are being debunked, and it raises a real question as to whether or not this has been, in some ways, blown out of proportion on college campuses. And the administration has made it very tough on universities. If they are not tough on these cases, and there's a lot to be said about whether or not they're being carried out fairly, then they get put on a list, and it's not a list you want to be on if you're hoping to get students to want to come to your school.
Look, there is definitely a very large movement in this country of people that feel like this is the opportunity to bring this issue forward of, you know, it is rape on campuses. Unfortunately, you know, for everyone involved in the Rolling Stone story, obviously this is a terrible situation. But what the backlash it ends up having is that for those that do not feel comfortable bringing their story forward, there is an assumption that every time someone comes forward, we're not really sure, we don't know if we should believe them. And because they did go looking out for this story, and because they decided to focus on something so sensationalistic like a gang rape, it really moves the conversation away from where we should be having. Is it 1 in 5? People do believe it's 1 in 5. You know, is it 1 in 16 men? That is what people believe is happening on campus, and that is the conversation we should be having. You know, the reason the universities are getting this backlash is because it's coming up from the students. The students want to have that conversation.
But the problem is that they're not being treated, both sides are not being treated fairly. So this woman's story was believed hook, line, and sinker, and yet there was no attempt to interview these other, you know, supposed perpetrators. And this is a trend that we've seen. And granted, there is, you know, 1 rape on 1 college campus is too many. Nobody wants to see that happen. But David, just quickly, are both sides being treated fairly?
No, they're not, Martha. Look, any rape allegation should be investigated, but an accusation that is false about rape, as this was, should be dealt with just as much. This is an administration that has also favored and pushed publicly that there should be trials on college campuses. That is not their job. We have a law enforcement establishment in this country. We have prosecutors, we have investigators. They should deal with these issues. They should not be left to professors who are unqualified for the job, or student councils or student boards. again, like you said, one rape, any rape, it is destruction of a human life. But the false claim, to Emily's point, that does harm the conversation. And by the way, I don't, these numbers, 1 in 5, 1 in 16, let's just deal with the individual incidences and deal with that as a systemic issue where it is.
We got to go. Emily and David, thank you.
Thank
See
you,
you next
Martha.
time.